So I want to bring up Bill Struthers next, and we're really lucky to have him. He has done a lot of study on this whole issue of the impact of pornography on men and as well as the women who deal with it, and he's come all the way from Chicago to be here. He's a Wheaton professor, and he's written a book that I think some of you guys have read called Wired for Intimacy that really digs into this issue. And he's actually coming out with a new book called Hot Wired, or that's the working title, about just porn and how we have exploited sexuality. So we're delighted to have him. Let me bring up Bill Struthers.
Thanks, brother. Thank you. I am the stodgy academic, so I apologize in advance. I must confess that it wasn't until I was 19 years old that I got interested in sex. And so when I was a sophomore in college, I would know on Saturday mornings I would wake up, and then I would head across campus, and I'd go to the lab, and we'd get the females that we had overectomized, the female rats, and we'd inject them with estrogen. And then on Sunday, we'd come back, and we'd inject them again. And then on Monday morning, we'd inject them with progesterone. And then Monday afternoons were spent in a lab with rats, watching them have sex and scoring the male behaviors, scoring the female behaviors. Once they had appropriately been sexually trained, we'd do brain surgery on them. We'd inject drugs into their brains and see how it affects. So I'm actually coming at this as a neuroanatomist, as a scientist. And so I have a very different way of thinking about sexuality. But the journey that I've had here is an interesting one, because I'm so into rat sex, and when I went to go teach at Wheaton College, I thought my students would be interested in rat sex, but they are not. They said, we don't really care about how much a female rat's back arches when she's being mounted by a male rat. We don't care how many number of thrusts the male has to have before he ejaculates. We don't care about any of that stuff. What we care about is human beings. And the big problem that we were seeing in the early to mid-noughties was that of pornography. That more and more men were coming up and saying, hey, you know, I've kind of got this problem, and it's almost like porn is heroin for my eyes. And that's where I would usually stop them and say, you've kind of got this a bit backwards. You're made for sex. Pornography is not heroin for your eyes. Pornography is a distilled orgasm that you are injecting into your brain. That's really the difference there, because we're not made for heroin, but we're made for sex. But sex tricks our brain into thinking that it's real. And so what we have now with the internet is we have the ability to get pornography on our phones. We see it available pretty much anywhere. You can go around the corner if you want to even get what the Brits will call a lad magazine, like Maxim or something like that, where there's no nipples, there's no exposed genitalia, but you can see all of the curves, and there's not really a whole lot left to the imagination. And so when we think about kind of our culture, we become increasingly sexualized, so that if you actually, maybe you watch the World Series, maybe you watch your Giants and your Jets out here, right? Cialis, Viagra, these are the commercials that are being advertised, because we don't want 60-year-old men, 50-year-old men who aren't able, like Groucho Marx, to get that erection as 50 or 60-year-old men that they could when they were 16 or 17. There's something wrong with them. They need to take a pill. And so when we think about it, as our culture has become increasingly more pornified, Kim Kardashian, no one knew who Kim Kardashian was until she made a sex tape, and then she got her show. Actually, it was kind of around the same time. Wasn't that convenient for that particular show? And so there's a lot going on culturally with the amount of sexuality and the pornified version of sexuality that I want to get to, that has even caught the attention of researchers. I mean, those of us who are looking at, brains and how are brains processing sexual images. It's very crucial, it's very important. And so it's been alluded to, but many of the scholars will say, well, pornography in the internet age is different because it's available and no one needs to kind of look for it. You don't have to go to the 42nd streets. It's available all over the place. And you can get it in the privacy of your own home. And the majority of it is free. If you want to go online, you don't have to pay a dime. And you can get 7 to 10 years worth of free pornographic video clips. And you could watch them for 7 years straight and still not exhaust all of the free porn that's available online. Now, we've seen that this is moving to now what are called the new A's, that porn is available anytime, anywhere, and just about anything. I can pull up a picture on this phone, or even a movie on my phone, of a person having sex with an animal if I really wanted to. And it would take maybe 4 or 5 clicks to get there. So even these devices, the smartphones that we have really changed the landscape, because porn was not available really until the broadband age, the wireless age kicked in, and now what we find is that it's acting on developing brains. Young children are now being exposed to it. I wasn't exposed to pornography until I was well into adolescence. But now we find 5, 6, 7-year-olds stumbling upon it because it's been mailed to their school email address, because their older brother was searching for it, or one of their classmates has sent it to them thinking that it was funny. And even the whole language of pornography, we're beginning to move away from it. Because in the 70s, we talked about porn, Deep Throat, right? These movies that were made, they were even pseudo-movies. They weren't, there were actually kind of adolescent plots to them. They were pretty stupid plots for the most part, but they weren't nothing but sex the whole way through. But now what we're seeing is that even those movies with plots have disappeared. Now what you're finding are scenes are being discussed as movies. A handful of months ago, there was a young Duke student who decided that she was going to do porn to pay for her way through college, and it kind of got a lot of press. And she said, "Oh yeah, I've done like 40 movies." And when you kind of probed a little bit deeper, what you discovered is, no, she had done 40 sexual scenes. See, a scene is not a movie. What we've done is porn has truncated our understanding of sexuality and made it just about this one act in this moment. It has no story behind it. But there is a story behind pornography, and we shouldn't even call it pornography. We should call it just what it is: sexual exploitation, or sexually explicit material. And with women, they're a little bit different from men, because women don't naturally find themselves drifting towards pictures of naked men. They find themselves drifting to Fabio on the cover of the romance novel, right? Women like romance novels, and if you doubt me, look at Kindle. Look at Kindle's ebooks are almost all romance novels. The highest selling ones are romance novels. See, this is for men, the Achilles heel, the hook neurologically is the visual image. For women, the hook neurologically is contextual. It's relationship. It's not that men don't care about relationship, it's just that it's not the hook for them, the entry point. For women, the romance novel is the entry point. So the 50 Shades of Grey phenomenon that we're seeing in women is not new. It's just disturbing because it has a lot of things that we would say are very unhealthy sexually. Now, as researchers, what we know is that the pornified culture that we live in now, the American Psychological Association did a report in 2009 looking at the sexualization of women and children, and found that it is pretty much across the media, it is across the marketing that you see out there, it's across the material that you can find online, and it doesn't even have to be naked images. It can be solicitous images. As a researcher, I think we're moving away from talking about porn as objectifying women. No, porn doesn't objectify women. This is an object. This is an object. I know that a woman is not this object. However, what pornography does is it animalifies women. It strips them of their moral character, of their ability to make decisions. And so there's an animalification. That if you take the picture of a naked woman and she's just standing there nude, they don't see that as sexually arousing. Most men won't. If, however, you cover her up a little bit with some lace and you bend her back a little bit and you twist her mouth, well, that will get much more of a rise than just a naked medical image of the anatomy of the human female. So there's these other cues that men are looking for that are solicitous cues. And women, by the way, are already better at men, on average neurologically, at picking up the subtle cues. This is why they go to erotica. But in a visual culture like we have, what we're finding is that more and more young women are developing porn addictions. More and more young women are picking up on the subtle cues of pornography and the masculine nature of pornography. And they are neurologically being groomed into male-dominated sexual scripts, stories, narratives about what does it mean to be sexual? Well, I guess what it means is that I get naked, he gets naked, he pounds me like a jackhammer, and then he orgasms on my face. I guess that's what I'm supposed to expect. And hey, look at that guy over there. He's got a very particular type of body. That's the kind of man that I need. Just as women are looking at men, so men are looking at women. Hey, she's got to have that, and she's got to have some of that in order for me to be aroused. And so what has happened is men and women are using pornography as masturbatory aids. And so they've become not heterosexual, not homosexual, not bisexual, but pornosexual. It's the thing that they are drawn to even more so than they are real human beings. So what we have is a fragmented version of sexuality. And so when we look specifically at women, what we do find is that porn does disproportionately exploit women, certainly in the production. Now, men are exploited, certainly. They don't make as much money as the women do. They have a different type of set of problems, psychological issues that they struggle with. But women are disproportionately exploited in the production of pornography. Now, while men tend to be the greater consumers of pornography, and we do see that the porn addicts, if that's what you want to call them, tend to be more disproportionately men. I think the running is now about for every 7 men, there's 3 women who are addicted to porn. But the men are there because they have, once again, this neurological Achilles heel. Women are usually young women who've been groomed into it. Now, some of this consumption is direct, but also some of it is indirect as you walk around the street. Porn in many ways and sexual exploitation is like some people like to smoke, right? And you can smoke and you get the nicotine rush off of it, but also there's what's called secondhand smoke. And the sexual exploitation that pornography has kind of caused to be secondhand smoke, other people in the culture are breathing it in, and that secondhand smoke, by the way, can damage you as well. And so many young people, and many old people as well, across the age range, but especially young people who are particularly vulnerable neurologically, are being impacted by pornography in very negative ways.